first talk of the day is from Costa.
Hello.
So I had a quick chat with Costa before we came in. It's a typical thing when you start a new role and you kind of come into pre-agreements and expectations in terms of technology that's going to be used, what your infrastructure stack's going to look like, and changing that, and whenever it's already been agreed, it's very challenging. So Costa's going to talk a bit about Cypress and why they barred Cypress.
Yeah.
Over to Costa.
Right, hello everyone. So yeah, my name's Costa. I currently working at Collibra. Been there since about November now, which is predominantly what I'm going to be talking about today. Yeah, there's my LinkedIn and just a little bit of personal stuff from my hobbies and stuff, but we'll move on from that. So, hopefully you can read that. So yeah, just a little bit of a timeline around sort of my journey in testing. Pretty much like everyone else that I speak to, I kind of fell into it. I spent like 10 years at HML doing non-technical work and just kind of fell into the role. I was like, oh my God, is this even a job? This is amazing. Just Excel and screenshots and manual testing. Never met a developer in my life there. Just working with other testers and test managers. And yeah, I loved it. I knew straight away that's kind of what I wanted to do for the rest of my career, really. And then, yeah, itchy feet, I guess. What's testing like somewhere else? I'd only ever known testing at HML. You kind of ask yourself, oh, I wonder what it's like somewhere else. So I went to MadeByPi in Leeds, and yeah, that's pretty much where I started learning like Python and Selenium. And again, never done coding before in my life. I don't have any kind of coding background. Yeah, I loved it. And you know, from then kind of went on to Sky, and gosh, Sky was amazing. I like pinch myself every morning thinking like, can't believe this is even classed as a job, you know. I just loved every second of it. And then, yeah, went over to DAZN, learned so much there. The work was boring, I'm not going to lie, but the people were incredible. Sorry, JP. No, the people were incredible though. I learned a lot. I probably learned more at DAZN than probably anywhere else. It's the only team I've been in that were fully CI/CD. So like code all the way into production from your PR, assuming all the tests had passed. So yeah, we had some really good people there. Then I went to InfinityWorks. Yeah, and then I was on the Skybet account there for the whole time really. So I managed to do some really good things on that account. Did a bit of Test Cafe and eventually Playwright, which is obviously going to be part of this talk. Until now, and in November last year I joined Collibra. I didn't know Collibra are, and you probably don't either. They're basically like a massive data organization, like data intelligence, data governance, data quality. Think of like what Jira is now, is like a B2B SaaS product. If you think companies that want to kind of plug in and see what their data is on all their metadata so they can make like informed decisions and take the guesswork out of things, then that's what we do for massive companies. I'm talking like Apple and Accenture and big banks and things. It's pretty big, to be honest. It's probably the biggest thing I've ever worked on in terms of systems. So yeah, I'm going to talk about my role at Collibra first of all. One of the reasons why I joined was after leaving, especially consultancy, I wanted to kind of have a wide reach and influence across not just like a Scrum team, but like across all of the company. And essentially that's what the task force is. They've kind of set up this task force, and I was going to be like full time on this with a few engineers, other testers and things like cherry picked on a part-time basis, but I'd be leading the task force, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And I'm still leading the task force as of now. But yeah, you see we've got like a central front-end team there. So that is basically like they're set up to essentially like good practices and set principles up around like front-end engineering. Each team has its own front-end engineers, but those are the guys that drive that. And eventually this task force, I'm pushing for like a central QA team essentially, which almost like internal quality consultants really, that are going to kind of help automation strategy, testing strategy, good practices and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I think it's gonna go that way eventually. So my first project in that task force. So this is pretty much what was told to me, brand new to the business, build a brand new end-to-end automation framework using Cypress. Integrate with something called Sorry Cypress dashboard for parallelization. I've never ever heard of Sorry Cypress. I don't know if anyone has. Yeah? Okay, because I didn't. Yeah, things like test tagging was important for our use case because, like I said, we're building a framework that's going to be used by all of the teams in the business. And again, that's the first in my career. I've built frameworks as part of Scrum teams and we've managed that as part of that team, and that's obviously easier to manage. But can you imagine scaling it out to like 8 teams, for example, especially when you want to put patterns in place and ensure that, you know, people's got different opinions and that, and how do you manage that? So tagging the test is important for team ownerships and things like that. And yeah, P0 end to end. Again, P0 is a Collibra term. It just means like the most critical user journeys are going to be run in this framework. And that's, if you look at the old frameworks, which I'll go into, you can see that there's like loads and loads and loads of tests that take forever to run and flaky and stuff. So we want to get away from that. Those are the browsers that we need to support: Edge, Firefox, Chrome, and Safari. So that was important. Test reporting is vital, including like reporting dashboards. I'll go in a bit about that. The ability to debug failed tests effectively. And yeah, I think I've already touched on that. The framework needs to be easy to adopt due to lots of teams contributing. Got to think all the teams have got different, so like SDETs, all have different experiences and stuff. So we need something that's going to be kind of easy. And we quickly found out with Cypress that it was not so easy. Right. So this is the project. Arbor is like the massive project now. It's like, I think 80% of the business are kind of working on Arbor now. And I'll talk about what that is now. So essentially, the monolith, this is currently what we've got now. This is like the legacy product, if you like. And currently, the end-to-end testing is done in both Cypress and Selenium and Python. I believe that Cypress is a really old version. I think it's stuck on like 8. We can't update it because it's breaking changes, essentially, so it's stuck. There's no patterns. It's very hard to read, very hard to scale up. Yeah, it made me quite sad looking at that when I joined. Python, I don't know why there's Python there. No one can give me a good enough answer when I ask. But for some reason, we've got two frameworks. So can you imagine me saying, oh, let's bring in Playwright? They'd be like, a third framework? That sounds scary as well, but I'll explain my reasons why. So yes, Arbor is essentially building this on the right. So breaking down microservices and splitting the front end out, you know, like, yeah, stuff that we should be doing anyway, really. And really annoyingly, we're going to have like 2 versions of the front end for like 18 months or so, which is a bit bonkers, but it's, yeah, that's just what they've decided. We can't do anything about that. So yeah, this is like the old UI, this is going to be the new UI, but doing this work will ensure that we can scale up faster in the long term. So that's pretty much it, yeah. And as I said, like all of this stuff on the far right, Cypress, Kubernetes, Jenkins, that's the task force that I am kind of leading. That's what essentially has been put to us to do. So my proposal is we just basically get to rip out Cypress and Cypress in favour of Playwright. And the reason for that is kind of a lot of the requirements that you saw in the project. For browser coverage, we don't need any third party, we don't need no cloud, everything can run within Jenkins, and we're doing that already. Like we have a nightly build across all of those supported browsers that I told you about, and we get that reported into Slack and things like that. So let's talk about this now. So yeah, 2023, be rude not to include a ChatGPT slide. So yeah, it's a bit of fun. Which tool is better? Literally, that's literally the question that I asked it. Didn't give it any context. And it came back with this. You know, I'm considering Microsoft plunged quite a lot of money into AI. I thought it might have been a little bit biased, but it wasn't. Yeah, it kind of, because I didn't, like I said, I didn't give any context, it basically just kind of gave you like reasons why both are good. the top, I don't kind of agree with the top one, focused on simplicity and developer experience. From my first sprint of trying to set up Cypress, it was far from easy. Really easy if you kind of just want to build a test and you want to chain everything together using promise chaining. Yeah, it's nice. But as soon as you want to break everything apart, page objects, move your API clients and things like that, and form some nice patterns, found it quite annoying. And I just thought, you know, if two people that are quite experienced are scratching our heads and going around in circles, what's it going to be like when you deliver this out to like 8 teams or more? So yeah. But yeah, everything else is pretty much I kind of agree with. And yeah, like I said, we do use Cypress. It still forms a massive part of our automation strategy. We use it for component testing. So it's not that like I'm against Cypress. It is a great tool, but I do feel like it serves a certain use cases, and I'll talk about that soon. So now I asked ChatGPT with a bit more context. So this is basically, I gave it this. So basically said the test must be fast, the test must be reliable, it must be easy to debug, should be easy to tag, reporting is important. Basically, all of the requirements that were passed to us from the project are just kind of fed into ChatGPT. So with that context, I actually thought Playwright was better. So I don't expect you to read all that, but like out of the box, I'm talking like out of the box, like Playwright pretty much does everything that we need without having to go for like third-party dependencies or look at services and everything. Even reporting, like when I show you the reporting later on, just on how easy it is to do that. Yeah, like we had a ticket on the board to tag tests, and someone had to go write a whole lot of code just to tag some tests, or look for a third-party library, in Cypress that is. In Playwright you just do @ and then whatever you want to tag at, and that's it, it's tagged. So just little things like that. So choosing the right tool needs to be carefully considered, right? Yeah, so yeah, like for me, when I'm picking a framework, just because it's right for my team doesn't necessarily mean it's right for your team, or, you know, we've all got different tech stacks, different problems to solve, you know, different engineers. So I always follow some basic guidelines and principles when I'm picking a framework, and you know, it's not just me that decides this. I get the team on board, the engineers on board, because ultimately, like, everybody owns testing. That's a big principle of mine, including the developers. So you want them on board, get them to think. You can even get them to feel like they've made that decision. You know, they feel really good about themselves. Like, yay. So yeah, ideally the test would live in the same repo as the application. That's not. Like, it's not in my case as a Collibra, because like I said, it's span across multiple teams, so it's pretty impossible. And like I said, they're just guidelines these. Identify the CI/CD requirements on the project. Collaborate with your team, like you said, make it a group decision. Like I said, I've already mentioned that. And identify the skills in your team. Like, I think that's quite important. Like, if you're working in a team and your back-end engineers are in, you know, they're working in Go, and your front-end engineers are working in TypeScript, like, I wouldn't ever, you know, build something in Python or something like that using Selenium, because then, like, where does that live? Who owns it? And that kind of stuff. You know, your developers are going to have to context switch, you know, and pick up something else. So I always try and keep the tech stack, the testing frameworks in the same sort of like domain as the application that's been built, if we can, you know. And there might be reasons why that can't be possible, and then you just take that decision as it comes in. So for me, yeah, the red flags for me, I was asking myself these questions very much early on, like, why are we using Cypress, you know, doing this custom code, separating the code was not easy. I think I've already mentioned that. Looking at cloud providers to do like the browser coverage that we needed, like things like Source Labs or Browser Stack. They were looking at a few, which can be quite slow. I mean, I've used Source Labs in the past, and for me, I always found it was really slow. It worked, but yeah, just really slow. And running Cypress in a standalone repo, I've never ever done it this way before, but quite opinionated. Having it at the root of the folder was a bit weird. It just didn't like it. It was expected to be like embedded in a front-end repository, like in a nested folder. And we had to kind of hack some stuff to get it working. That was, yeah, interesting, let's say. I think, like I said, I don't think it's ever been intended to be run as a standalone application. So comparing the tools, obviously now I've got to a stage now where nobody knows me at Collibra. Bear in mind I'm new. People have gone through a lot of trouble to put in Cypress and all this sort of stuff, and all of a sudden I'm coming in now and I'm challenging that, and you know, I've got to build a case essentially. So the first thing that I did as part of the POC was, without any bias, just kind of compare the tools. As you can see, side by side. Some of these are some of the key things that stand out, like browser support, the architecture. Like, good thing about Playwright is it works on Mac, Windows, and Linux across all the browsers as well. So what you get on any operating system, you get the same capabilities essentially, which is really nice. It's got its own built-in test runner. It does support multiple languages. I tend to stick to TypeScript because it's got the most support, really. The others, for example, Python you can use with PyTest, and Java with JUnit, I think. They are okay, but they just don't get the features as quickly as the TypeScript stuff. So if you do use it, I recommend the TypeScript, definitely. Yeah, open source, both open source. Both have got like really, really good support out there. Documentation's amazing from both. Community's great from both. So can't really say anything negative about that. Parallelization's a big one though. I did mention that tests had to be fast, under 5 minutes. What's good about Playwright is you can scale it horizontally as well as vertically, so we can shard. And we've got workers. So workers is obviously vertical. And yeah, because we're running in Kubernetes as well, we can like have as many containers as we need, and we can shard across the board. And I'll go into that a little bit later on. Yeah, a little bit more comparison, in a bit more detail really. So Cypress was built essentially by front-end engineers to solve front-end engineering problems, and it runs in the browser. I think that's the key difference from Playwright, which runs on the server, which actually makes Cypress really, really powerful. Like, your application's running in the browser, Cypress is running in the browser, and for that reason, Cypress can literally like get into the internal states of the application. And if you're testing lower down the stack, I guess, even at component level, you've got the ability to kind of get inside the application, and you can, like, with app actions and things like that, you can like quickly put set your front end state up really, really quickly. And for that, like, Cypress is a clear, like, awesome tool for that. Without having to like inject data into the database or even via any APIs, like it's rapid. I've seen some good blogs on that. So yeah, like for that particular use case, hands down Cypress all day long. Playwright, again, yeah, it's forked initially from Google's Puppeteer. Puppeteer is also pretty good. I know we used it at DAZN. And so Microsoft took Puppeteer as a starting point, and basically Playwright was born. Like I said, it runs on the server. So yeah, a little bit different to Cypress there. And again, because it runs on the server, that it loses some of the benefits that Cypress has, but then it has other benefits, again, which we'll go into. Let's have a look. Yeah, developer experience. Again, this is quite important. Again, like I said, lots of teams are going to be adopting this. Side-by-side code snippets, really. This is Cypress, this is Playwright. And this is just essentially using like a DGC client, so like a client generation tool for interacting with the API to set up test data, essentially. So as you can see here, we've got like this side wrap, and then we've got this DGC client, and then we're creating a user, then we alias it as a user. And then we have to like do side up then, and then we have to reference it with this. And as you can see, it's okay, but scaling that is and then using that in other files and things like that, it's not as pretty as I'd like it to be. And on the other hand, just like I said, async await code, it's really clean, concise. That for me, that's naturally how I like to read and write code. Yeah, just nicer really. Taking that on, this is essentially a test file in Cypress and again in Playwright. So you can see how we have this user that we've kind of abstracted away, and we've kind of wrapped it in this create user now. And there's quite a lot going on there. Yeah, and like I told you, we had to write some custom code to do test filtering. Obviously that's abstracted away and done. Yeah, again, it's okay. It's all right, but if you compare it to Playwright, it was like, what, 13 lines of code there. Like tagging is literally just @smoke, and that's your tag done. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Playwright and fixtures, but fixtures are really powerful. Do you think like the browser or the page, things like the API stuff that you can do, request, that's the word we're looking for. So these are all fixtures, but you can actually extend Playwright's fixtures and build your own and custom and extend your own. And that's exactly where we put all our page objects in and things like that, all of the test data. So as you can see, we're passing in as a fixture unauthenticated user, login page and dashboard page, because that's what that test needs. So behind the scenes, from the previous slide, you could see we create an unauthenticated user, and then you've got access to that in the test without having to like bring in any boilerplate. You don't have to create an instance of a login page or an instance of the dashboard page as the class, because it's already done for us. And it's like, I just really love that. It's just so clean. Like you say, you can access everything within an authenticated user, within whatever the DGC client returns, which is quite a big object, and just use it when you need it. So love how simple and it is to to write tests.
Costa 5 minutes.
5 minutes, right, I better be quick. Okay. Test parallelization. Again, it's like I said, it can scale horizontally. So even using Cypress on the right, because it runs in the browser, it can only run, even tests can only run sequentially. So yeah, if you've got like 4 machines, you still have to run spec 1, then spec 2, then spec 3. However, doing sharding, you can have like these 3 machines. You can run all of those specs in parallel. So as you can see, when you transfer that to a graph, if you've got 5 workers, for example, which is on 1 machine, and then you've got say 5 machines, you can see exponentially gets bigger and bigger. So the number of tests you can run in parallel is growing quite a lot. So yeah, just a little bit about out-of-the-box support there. Obviously, Cypress can support a lot of this stuff, but you're just looking for third-party solutions and things like that, and you end up patching it and patching it and patching it. We're actually because we're sharding, we're using a third-party library to merge all the reports back together, and even that we updated Playwright 1 month and it broke. Just one dependency, external dependency. Until Playwright are actually working on natively sorting this out. Because obviously if you've got 5 shards and you've got 5 test reports, you want to merge them all into a single report so it's easy to debug and have everything in one place. So yeah, this is essentially how I had to kind of get the decision overturned at work. So this is me and my task force. I've told you about this client front-end team. We have an internal automation group, and we have the architecture. And then we've got the technical board. I had to present my case to the technical board because this had already been signed off. And anyone that knows me, I was like, yay, technical board, straight away, come on, let's go. No. I built up my allies, basically, like did the presentation to the CFT, they loved it. Went to the automation group, they also loved it. Architecture architecture was a hard one because obviously they'd gone to all this trouble to kind of put the initial Cypress in place. So yeah, getting them on board as well meant that I had all of these stakeholders, all these people that are going to be like using Playwright on board. So yeah, when we got to the technical board, 10 minutes, and you know it was pretty much signed off, and we was able to roll out with Playwright. So that was great. And yeah, just quickly, like, just show you some of the good stuff that Playwright gives us. So this is like a nightly run that we do. So we run obviously as part of every PR and everything like that. That's a given, just on Chrome. But like every night we're running on Chrome, WebKit, Firefox, and Edge. And if they fail or if they pass, you know, we report into there, so we can proactively make sure that there's no regressions on any of the browsers. Team ownership, like I said, really easy to kind of tag which team owns the test, because like I said, like lots of teams are responsible. So what if there's a bug? Who owns that test? We can easily find out who owns the test and go to that team for them to fix it. And yeah, that's pretty much it.